Welcome back to the channel. So earlier this year I was down in Tampa for a wedding, which was just an absolutely wonderful time. Saw two of my favorite people in the world get married, I ate a lot of great food, and there was even a live band. All in all, just a really, really great time. The next day I decided to make my drive back home up to Gainesville a really long and leisurely one. Really take the day, see a bunch of places I've never seen before, that sort of thing. You know, really explore the Gulf Coast in a way that I've never done. So I loaded up my Canon Rebel 2000 that has that nifty 50 1.8 attached to it with some Kodak Ultramax 400, first time using it. Before I actually hit the road, I wanted to take a picture of this canal. It's actually right behind my in-laws' house down in Tampa. And it was such a beautiful morning that morning that I absolutely had to snag a picture. I like this picture a lot. The water has a neat effect where the reflections really bring the background into the midground, making it the center subject. I don't know, it's really cool. So right near where they live in Tampa, there's this really wonderful Hindu temple that I've heard a lot about and found on Atlas Obscura. So I had full plans to make this my first stop and wander around, take lots of pictures. I love architecture, I love temples, and I don't get a lot of chances to take pictures of Hindu ones. But there was a ceremony happening, a lot of people, and I really don't want to bother anyone, but I will come back. So up next on the agenda was my first real stop, Weeki Wachee Springs State Park. My wife had come here with some friends several months ago and told me all about the mermaid shows and how wonderful it was, and it absolutely piqued my interest. So this is something I've been wanting to go to for a while, and I had the opportunity, so I took it. And yes, I do mean real mermaids. Real mermaids. So the spring's name, Weeki Wachee, was actually named by the Seminole tribe. It means little spring or winding river. And every single day, more than 100 million gallons of water comes up from the aquifer at that nice 74 degrees that it is all year round. And actually, something I read while doing my research about this place, the spring is apparently so deep that the bottom has never actually been found. Once again, as a transplant from Georgia, I really wanted to do a little bit of research about this place. This place is really known to a lot of Floridians, but it's not something that I grew up with, so I wanted to do a little bit of research. I figured I would share a little bit with you guys right now. So in 1946, Newton Perry actually found the springs, well, scouted it out as a potential spot for a new business that he wanted to start. He ended up building a little theater submerged 6 feet under the water so that viewers could look out right into the spring and see it all in its natural glory. And then Newt started to look out for and recruit a lot of very pretty women to become the new star attraction at his springs. He taught them to swim with the air hoses and do basically underwater ballet. It's something that was extremely novel for the time. And then October 13th, 1947, the first Weeki Wachee Mermaid Ballet was performed. By the mid-50s, this became one of the nation's most popular tourist destinations. Eventually, the whole thing was actually bought by the American Broadcasting Corporation, aka ABC, and they ended up building a 400-person theater into the limestone, which is the theater that's actually still there to this day, and really expanded upon the whole thing. And that's what firmly planted this place into the core history of Florida. And then in 1982, Buccaneer Bay, which is the water park at the springs, was built, and it's actually Florida's only spring-fed water park. All the water is directly from the spring itself, which I thought was super neat. I really like this first picture of the water park. The lifeguard in the foreground, the swimmers in the midground, and the slides in the background really give the whole thing a great sense of depth. Plus, it kind of looks like a vintage postcard. That was genuinely very fun. I just left the mermaid show where they were doing the Little Mermaid. Very impressive performances by the actresses. I've never seen that sort of thing before. The fact that they could stay underwater for that long is quite impressive. On to the next stop. Up next was Homosassa Springs Wildlife State Park. I had really no idea what to expect from this park. I didn't even know the word wildlife was in the name. I just saw Homosassa Springs and thought that might be interesting. Maybe it would be more water themed like Weeki Wachee or Ichetucknee. It also turns out there are two main entrances to this park, and the first one was a little bit lackluster. I walked around for a little bit and got some photos, but I eventually realized that there was the other section that I should go check out, and I'm really glad I did. After making my way to the other part of the park, I realized what I was about to see. That's right, manatees! Before I could get to the manatee section, though, I found this whole other section that had some really exotic animals and wildlife, including a fucking hippo. And his name is Lou. Before the state bought this park and the springs and turned it into a state park, Ivan Tour's animal actors housed their trained animals that they would use in like movies and TV and stuff. They housed them here when they weren't acting. So essentially the animals, while resting, would become a tourist attraction. And that's how Lou ended up at the park. He was one of those animals. But when the state eventually took over the park, he was set to be shipped out. And there was such a uproar from the local community that the governor at the time declared him an honorary citizen of Florida so that he could continue to stay there in his home that he had been in for however many years at that point. I really like this picture of the people on the bridge a lot. I think the lines of the bridge really lead your eyes back in a really nice way. And the center pillars framing the group of people was a really nice touch. Same bridge, different angle. I just really love bridges. I enjoy this photo a lot because we get a nice grand view of the bridge spanning the entire distance and have the trees on either side really framing it in a nice way. There were so many manatees around this park, in the river, in a couple of different like tank areas. It was awesome. One of the coolest things about this park is this underwater observatory they have. You actually get to go below the water, and it's a room filled with windows that you can look out into the spring and see animals in their natural habitat. And the photo I took in this room is really fun, even if it's not the best. The color of the film turned the blue light into this really eerie green, and I just love it. Now this photo, I do really like this photo. I've been trying a lot harder to capture people in my shot, especially in like wide shots of architecture, to really help give the image the scale it needs for you to really appreciate it. The kid here in the photo really nails the theme of exploration that this park and hopefully this picture really convey. There were a ton more animals I went to see after this. I love flamingos so much and don't often get to see them, so this is always a treat. The flamingos in this photo being almost hidden by the trees in the foreground really works for me. Almost like they're just like a little secret back there. I had to take this one. It was a little just too on the nose. All in all, I thought this was a really cool park. I definitely want to come back here, especially now that I have the knowledge of all the animals and all that stuff. The bears, the mountain lions, I didn't really get to spend a lot of time there. I did catch it relatively close to closing, but I definitely want to come back. Well, I just ran out of my roll of Kodak Ultra Max 400, but I have a backup roll of that Fuji 400 that you can buy kind of everywhere, just because it's easily accessible. The pictures are fine. So I'm going to load it up into the camera. We still got a couple more stops to go, so. Here we go. And that's it. 36 exposures, ready to go. And literally just down the road, there's another state park, if you can believe it. Yulee Sugar Mills Ruin State Park. And honestly, this thing has to be the smallest state park in Florida, if not the country. I even passed it on accident trying to find it and had to turn around. And it's on the main road to Homosassa. I can't really stress how little this park is. David Yulee was the owner of the mill and the plantation that once stood here in the 1800s. He was also, I think, a U.S. senator at one point. And then, when the Civil War began, Union naval blockades really cut off a lot of his customers that he could potentially sell stuff to. So eventually, the whole mill just shut down. And then finally, in May of 1864, a Union force burned down the plantation and his home, which was on a nearby island. He was using it as a stockade for Confederate weaponry. The Union troops were unable to actually locate the mill. Like I said, this was kind of on a separate area, so they ended up leaving that, which is why it's still standing today. Yulee eventually fled, but was later captured and imprisoned for a short time until he eventually returned to Florida to build like railroads or something. This was my favorite photo I took in this little tiny state park. You can basically see the entire ruins here with a nice balanced background, midground, foreground. This bar was literally right next to the park. I'm talking the parking lot butted up against the state park. And this guy was very intrigued by me being there filming myself, so I had to take a picture of him. After that, I kept following the main road, heading down towards Homosassa. And is it really a road trip without a photo of the small town post office? I don't think so. Now, I've never been to Homosassa before, but the one thing I knew I had to find was this Monkey Island. That's right, like Monkey Island. I had read about it online. I knew it was in Homosassa, so I had to go there. I ended up at this riverfront like resort complex. It had like a restaurant, some hotel rooms, and a dock, that sort of thing. And wouldn't you know it, there in the water, Monkey Island. After I got home, I did a little bit of research on the island, and I found out that it wasn't always an island. It actually just started off as sort of like a rock outcropping that boats would hit all the time. Eventually, a developer named G.A. Ferguson instructed some crew members that were working on some nearby stuff to just dump a bunch of like dirt on this rock outcropping to hopefully stop boats from hitting it. The crew were a tad bit over enthusiastic, and by the time Ferguson got back from his out of the country trip, there was what only could be described as a small island. Now his attention went back to his new wildlife sanctuary he was building that later became Homosassa Springs State Park, but his attraction was going to have a bunch of wild animals like it still does today. And this included a small group of some monkeys that were research monkeys that were brought to sort of retire here but also be attractions. Apparently these particular monkeys were exceptional escape artists, and after several run-ins with tourists, he reportedly wished he could send the little hooligans to Alcatraz. And like a light bulb going off over his head, he realized, I kind of do have a little monkey Alcatraz. So he built a little structure, a little lighthouse, and shipped the monkeys off to their new home, and it was officially deemed Monkey Island. So after this very eventful day, I hit the road home. I truly had no idea I would see monkeys on an island, let alone a hippo and some manatees on this trip, plus the mermaids. I just had a really wonderful time on this trip and was happy to really use that Kodak Ultra Max 400 for the first time. I really liked how the photos came out with it. But anyways, thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting the channel and supporting my photography. Your support really does mean the world to me. And if you're interested in seeing more, please subscribe to the channel. That's the best way to stay up to date on all my videos, is to be subscribed. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.